Hey everyone, and welcome to a new lecture. It's our 11th lecture, and in this lecture we will discuss about gaseous exchange in humans. In today's lecture we will discuss about gaseous exchange in humans. We will talk about the characteristics of respiratory surfaces, lung structure, ventilation of the lungs, and we will also discuss about protection of the gas exchange system from pathogens and particles. So let's start our topic. Firstly, we will talk about the gas exchange in humans. We will discuss about the characteristics of respiratory surfaces. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide across a respiratory surface, as in the lungs, depends on the diffusion of these two gases. So, diffusion occurs more rapidly if there is a large surface area exposed to the gas. So, diffusion occurs more rapidly if there is a large surface area exposed to the gas. Secondly, the distance across which diffusion has to take place is small. And if there is a good blood supply, and if there is a big difference in the concentration of the gas at 2 points brought about by the process of ventilation. So diffusion occurs more rapidly if there is a large surface area exposed to the gas. The distance across which diffusion has to take place is small. And if there is a good blood supply, and if there is a big difference in the concentration of the gas at 2 points, which is brought about by the process of ventilation. So this diagram is showing the trachea, alveoli, bronchioles, right bronchus, ribs, intercostal muscles, diaphragm and heart. Now we will talk about the structure of the lung. As we know that the lungs are enclosed into the thorax. Lungs have a spongy texture and they can be expanded and compressed by the movement of the thorax in such a way that the air is sucked in and blown out. The lungs are joined to the back of the mouth by the windpipe or trachea. So trachea is divided into the two smaller tubes which are known as bronchi, which enters into the lungs and divide into the bronchioles. The trachea divide into the smaller tubes which are known as bronchi, as we have discussed earlier. Then bronchi enters into the lungs and divide into the bronchioles. So these small branches end in microscopic air sacs which are known as alveoli. So epiglottis and other structures at the top of the trachea stop food and drink from entering into the air passages when we swallow. Epiglottis and other structures at the top of the trachea stop the food and drink from entering into the air passages when we swallow some food. So the diaphragm is a sheet of the tissues that separates the thorax from the abdomen. Ribs form a cage that protects the lungs and heart and move to ventilate the lungs. So now we will discuss about the intercostal muscles. What are the intercostal muscles? Intercostal muscles are the muscles between the ribs which raise the rib cage by contracting and lower it by relaxing. We have discussed the lung structure in detail. Now we will talk about the ventilation of the lungs. What is ventilation? So the movement of air into and out of the lungs is known as ventilation. It renews the oxygen supply in the lungs and it also removes the surplus carbon dioxide. What is the process of inhaling and how it takes place? So inhaling occurs when the intercostal muscle relax and the external intercostal muscles contract. So when internal intercostal muscles relax and the external intercostal muscles contract, they pull the rib cage upward and outwards. In this process, diaphragm contracts and it pulls downwards, and the volume in the thorax gets bigger, forcing the lungs to expand and the air pressure inside decreases. So air is pushed into the lungs. This is the phenomena of inhaling. Now we will talk about the exhaling. So in the process of exhaling, the external intercostal muscles relax and the internal intercostal muscles contract and they pull the rib cage downwards and inwards. So the diaphragm relaxes and moves back upwards. And the lungs are elastic and shrink back to their relaxed volume and the air pressure inside increases. So the air is pushed out of the lungs. So this is the whole phenomena of exhaling. Now we will discuss about the gaseous exchange and how it takes place in the human. What is gaseous exchange? It refers to the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide which take place between the air and blood vessels in the lungs. So gaseous exchange in the lungs happens in the alveoli. Now we will discuss about the features of alveoli. So some of the features of alveoli includes thin walls. Thin walls are those walls that are just one cell thick. So it is also a feature of alveoli. Second feature is the large surface area. And the third one is moist surface. Fourth one is many blood capillaries. So all of these are features of alveoli. So we can say that alveoli has the thin walls, large surface area, moist surface and have many blood capillaries. So here we can see that the deoxygenated blood cells blue for purpose of diaphragm only. in this diagram we can see that the oxygenated blood out. Here are the alveoli. Oxygen is coming inward, carbon dioxide is going outward, and red blood cells in the capillaries are present, and here the deoxygenated blood is entering, air is coming out and air is coming in. So air is coming in, oxygen coming in, and oxygenated blood coming out. Now this slide is showing the composition between the inspired and expired air. Oxygen is inhaled 21%, carbon dioxide inhaled is 0.04%, and water vapors are variable. Oxygen exhaled is 16%, carbon dioxide exhaled is 4%, and water vapors are saturated. So it is the composition between the inspired and expired air. So in inspired air, oxygen is inspired or inhaled 21%, carbon dioxide is 0.04%, and water vapors are inspiration of water vapors is variable. While if we talk about the expired air, then oxygen is exhaled or expired 16%, carbon dioxide is expired 4%, and water vapors are saturated. So some of the oxygen is absorbed into the bloodstream when it enters the alveoli, resulting in the reduction of the oxygen. So we can see that the cells of the body produce carbon dioxide as a waste product during the aerobic respiration. So bloodstream carries carbon dioxide to the lungs for the process of excretion and diffuses across the walls of the alveoli to be expired, and it results in 100% increase of carbon dioxide breathed out. The lining of the alveoli is coated with a film of the moisture in which oxygen dissolves. Some of the moisture evaporates into the alveoli and saturates the air with water vapors. So, the air you breathe out always contains a great deal more water vapors than the air you breathe in. So the air we breathe out always contain a great deal more water vapors than the air we breathe in. Now we will discuss about the breathing rate and exercise. So the increased rate and depth of the breathing during exercise allows more oxygen to dissolve into the blood and supply to the active muscles, while the extra carbon dioxide that the muscles pulls into the blood is detected by the brain, which instructs the intercostal muscles and diaphragm muscles to contract and relax more rapidly, increasing the breathing rate. So carbon dioxide will be removed by the faster and deeper breathing. So the rate of breathing can be measured by counting the number of breaths in 1 minute. So how we can measure the rate of breathing? We can measure the rate of breathing by counting the number of breaths in 1 minute, because the number of breaths in 1 minute represents the rate of breathing. So, how we can measure the depth of breathing? So, we can say that the depth of the breathing can be measured by using a spirometer. What is a spirometer? Spirometer is a device that is used to measure the depth of the breathing. Spirometer is a device that measures the volume of the air that is inhaled and exhaled. So we can measure the rate of breathing by counting the numbers of breaths in 1 minute, while the depth of the breathing can be measured by a device which is known as the spirometer. So spirometer is a device that measures the volume of air inhaled and exhaled. How we can investigate the effect of exercise on breathing? So to investigate the effect of exercise on breathing, record the rate of breathing for a few minutes when the person is at rest. After they do some exercise, record their rate of breathing every minute until it returns to the normal resting value. In this way, we can investigate the effect of exercise on breathing. Firstly, record the rate of breathing for a few minutes when person is in rest position. After, ask the person to do some exercise and record their rate of breathing every minute until it returns to the normal resting value. Now we will discuss about the protection of the gas exchange system from pathogens and particles. So pathogens are present in the air we breathe in and are potentially dangerous if not actively removed. So there are two types of cells that provide mechanism to help achieve this. So there are two types of cells. Now we will discuss these two types of cells. Firstly, we will talk about the goblet cells. So goblet cells are those cells that are found in the epithelial lining of the trachea, bronchi, and some bronchioles of the respiratory tract. So goblet cells are those cells that are found in the epithelial lining of trachea, bronchi, and some bronchioles of the respiratory tract. And what is the role of goblet cells? So the role of goblet cell is to secrete the mucus. Goblet cells secrete mucus. What is the function of this mucus? So the mucus forms a thin film over the internal lining. So this sticky liquid traps the pathogens and small particles and preventing them from entering into the alveoli where they could cause infection or physical damage. So the mucus forms a thin film over the internal lining and this sticky liquid traps the pathogens and other small particles and it prevents them from entering into the alveoli. So in this way they prevent the infection or physical damage. So second type is the ciliated cells. So ciliated cells are those cells that are also present in the epithelial lining of the respiratory tract. So ciliated cells are in continually flicking motion to move the mucus secreted by the goblet cells upward and away from the lungs. So ciliated cells continually flick motion to move the mucus which is secreted by the goblet cells upward and away from the lungs. When the mucus reaches the top of the trachea, it passes down the gullet during the normal swallowing. So, ciliated cells are in a continually flicking motion and move the mucus that is secreted by the goblet cells upward and away from the lungs. So when the mucus reaches to the top of the trachea, it passes down the gullet during the normal swallowing. So this is the whole lecture. I hope you have understood all the topics. Thank you.